Hey there, we're Shannon and Jerry Arner, your hosts of the Arner Adventures podcast.
We're a minimalist couple driven by intentional living and adventure.
Burned out from the 24/7 grind of running our business, we traded the hustle and the bustle for something more meaningful.
We parted ways with most of our belongings and moved to the coast.
Listen along as we chat about life's challenges, share inspiring stories of those who have taken big leaps to live a life outside of the norm,
and help you live with more intention and less physical and mental clutter.
Each episode is a step toward doing and being just a little bit better for ourselves and the world around us.
Life's an adventure after all. Join us for the ride.
It's the Arner Adventures podcast.
Hello everyone, I'm Shannon.
And I'm Jerry.
We are back for episode 136 of the Arner Adventures podcast.
We're going to get to it right away because we love conversations like the one we had with our guest today.
Our guest is Shannon Leyko. She's a fellow minimalist. She loves talking all things declutter, putting what matters in life first. We loved this. How to maneuver the stuff that's weighing you down and the mindset behind it all.
That's right. We recorded this episode on a Saturday morning, and it was so inspirational that we spent the rest of the weekend decluttering again. Because you can't declutter too much, folks. The stuff just trickles in.
It does. And we know that you're going to enjoy this episode just as much as we did. So we're just going to go ahead and get right to the convo. Are you ready?
Let's get to the convo.
Shannon Leyko is an accomplished author, podcast host, mother of three, and military wife. She currently resides in Florida after a significant move from Alaska, which we're going to talk about. Her book, You're Completely Normal, debuted as an Amazon Top 50 hot new release in self-development in 2020. A former Miss New York and classical vocalist, Shannon also has experience as a reality television development producer. We cannot wait to hear more about that. As the host of the podcast Paring Down, she helps listeners declutter their homes and simplify their lives to foster more intentional living. Her realistic approach to minimalism emphasizes mental wellness and focusing on what truly matters. Shannon, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's so fun to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You're like a pro at podcasts, so I feel like, we're just like going to go with it. It's going to be great.
Oh gosh, well, you guys have been at it longer than me. So yeah, I have high hopes for today, and it's already been so much fun even before we hit record.
we agree. Well, we did say where you moved to, but we would love it if you could paint a picture and tell our audience where you're coming to us from today.
Sure. So I'm in the panhandle of Florida, kind of like right on the Alabama line. I joke that we live in the South, but we are technically in Florida. And that is a Coast Guard move. So my husband is in the Coast Guard. We move every 3 years. So we moved here from Ketchikan, Alaska. So, just a gentle transition from Alaska to Florida.
Yeah, gentle.
Gentle, right? No, it was a complete 180. And we are here for another year. And then who knows where we're going to be off to next.
So we stopped on a cruise in Ketchikan. So I've only been there for like a day, but I will tell you, and I've talked about this before, because we've talked about how the weather and things affects your mental health. I struggled on that Alaskan cruise, and I was so ready to get home. I was just like, I need some sunshine. I would never do well in the Pacific Northwest. Like, it would just not work for me. So what was that like for you? And then you're coming to the Sunshine State. I mean, how was that transition?
Okay, so I feel like I'm a bit of an anomaly in that I am a rainy mountains person. So I'm actually my happiest when it's raining outside, and if there's mountains around. So Ketchikan, Alaska was my dream. I totally thrived when I was up there. I was, making everything from scratch, and I was in the best shape of my life. And I was taking my kids to the beach to go look for orca whales and different, beach combing for starfish. I mean, I was living my best life up there. And so the transition down to Florida was actually really hard for me, probably similar to the way you felt on your Alaskan cruise, except obviously in a bit of a grander scale, considering we had to live here full time, coming to somewhere where it was sunny all the time. My kids and we don't love sandy beaches, which is ironic. I grew up in San Diego and then followed by Virginia Beach. So sandy beaches is what I always knew. But we just discovered such a passion and a love for the kind of outdoors that the Pacific Northwest is. Because Ketchikan, we always joke, it's basically Seattle heavy. It's 600 miles north of Seattle. For those who don't know, it's the southernmost city in Alaska, or town. Really, there's one road. It's a very what's the word? I can't think of it. Isolated island. So you can't even drive off the island. You have to take a boat to get to, like a ferry to get to a different island, to get on an airplane to get off the island, off of Ketchikan. So it's really, really isolated, but I loved that. So it was during the pandemic. So, I mean, I was living my best hermit life up there.
Oh, okay. You were.
I was.
You were.
Great. Yeah. But what's interesting is I've kind of found that this definitely fed my love for minimalism, because if you've heard of the term hygge before, it's this Danish term. Okay. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So the happiest people in the world are proven to be those in Nordic countries. Like year after year, when they do these happiness scale tests or whatever worldwide, it's always, like Denmark or Sweden or Norway. These people are the happiest in the world, and they have some of the darkest, dreariest weather. And a lot of this happiness comes from, these experts have gone in and kind of assessed their lives in a qualitative manner, and they are cozy. They live in these small, cozy homes that are not stuffed to the brim, and they kind of sit around and enjoy their coffee, and they take a slow stance on life. And life in Ketchikan was really slow, right? There's no such thing as 2-day Amazon when they can't get on the barge fast enough to get to Ketchikan. So we had to really adjust to that slow way of living. And I found that my soul was so much more at peace and so much more restful because we didn't have all the options to leave the house and go to different restaurants. We had like 3 restaurants on the island, and that was it. And they were usually closed during the winter. Or we couldn't take our kids to some big event, right? Because there's no events really, there's a great arts community in Ketchikan, surprisingly, but we didn't have those options. And so your way of life is just a lot slower. It's a lot cozier because you are inside more. So you find ways to make it feel close knit and special. And I think that really fed my love of slow living, and is one of the reasons I went hardcore on slow living when we moved to Florida, because I needed to recreate that sense of coziness that we got in Ketchikan that really fueled that happiness that hygge talks about.
I have become, when we made our big lifestyle change and we really embraced minimalism, in more recent years, I've really started to embrace more of the cozy minimalism, things that really just make me have that cozy hygge feel. Like I just feel like that's sort of my jam now. But I think minimalism, when we, before we sort of began this lifestyle or this journey, I do feel like it was sort of the stereotype, like, oh, it's all bare walls. You have a post, and I think it was either today or recently, where you were talking about the white couch and the kids thinking that it's like, so I think that's what I thought, was everything is just going to be sterile. But then as we began living that lifestyle, I guess my question here is, do you agree, especially with kids, is that I feel like you really you've said this a lot, Jared, that you make room for the things that bring you so much more joy, and for us are like functional and not just a bunch of knickknacks sitting around that don't mean anything.
If you're anything like us and have a deep love for the ocean, you are a thalassophile.
Well, we've got something special for you. It's the Thalassophile Soy Candle from our collaboration with Southern Oak Artisan.
This hand-poured candle is crafted with the highest quality ingredients like all of Southern Oak Artisan's products. 100% natural soy and clean oils, completely free of toxins. You can enjoy the ambiance it creates without sacrificing your health.
I love that you said ambiance correctly.
Yeah, thank you.
The scent, it's like bringing a day at the sea right into your home. Perfect for all you ocean lovers out there.
Or should we say, thalassophiles.
But it's more than just a candle. Once it's finished burning, this adorable jar can be repurposed.
Head over to arneradventures.com/shop to get your Thalassophile soy candle, and check out our other mindful wares.
And the best part, a portion of every purchase goes to support mental health advocacy groups, which you can read all about on our Mindful Wares page.
So light up your life, support a great cause, and bring a bit of the ocean's magic into your home with the Thalassophile soy candle.
Again, that's at arneradventures.com/shop. And now let's get back to the show.
So minimalism, I think we often think of the home decor that came about maybe in the 60s, right? When you think of these very straight lines and minimal furniture and everything's neutral and white, right? Like you just kind of think of IKEA, I feel like that's minimalism. But really, when you step back, when we talk about minimalism as a whole, it's taking the idea of getting rid of what's unnecessary, only keeping what is essential so that it can be functional in your life. So if you for you, if what's functional is to be cozy and happy and around your family, then you're going to have a throw blanket, and maybe it's going to have, mine has smiley faces on it, right? Like, to me, that is the essential. We don't have a bunch of blankets. We don't have 10 or 20 blankets like I used to, because I love blankets, but now we have 2, and one has smiley faces and one has daisies on it, and they make me really, really happy, right? And so we're just getting down to what's essential to you, and that's going to look so different from person to person. We all have different interests, and we all have different kind of design aesthetics that we're drawn to. I love color. Give me backsplash. Give me all these things that make me feel like I'm at home. I want to have pictures of my kids on the wall, all that kind of thing. Minimalism isn't saying no to that. It's saying no to maybe really cluttered gallery walls, because then your eyes don't know where to look, and you don't know which picture is the most important to you on that wall, versus 4 really special canvases. And then the rest can maybe go in an organized book on your coffee table, right? It's minimalism is getting to the essential in your home, so that when you walk in the door, one of the biggest compliments I've ever gotten is, and I actually received it a few times, is like, man, when I walk in your house, I feel like I know who you are. I know who your family is. And then I also feel comfortable. Like, I want people to walk into my home and feel like they don't have to move around, throw pillows on my couch in order to sit comfortably. They can sit wherever they want on the couch, and there's room for them there. I want them to be able to open a cabinet and easily see what glass they're supposed to take, and not a mountain of different glasses. And they're like, I don't know which one I'm supposed to use. You know what I mean? That's my goal. And to me, that's cozy, not all the knickknacks everywhere. Coziness is a sense of comfortability in your own home.
I love that you said that.
Yeah, that's down our alley, I think.
One of the compliments that we receive numerous times, similar, not so much, I feel like I know who you are, but we do hear, I just feel like I'm just more at ease here. Like, I don't feel like I need to stress out about anything. Oh, I'm just more calm here. And I always say, but listen, that's why we think decluttering is so important, is to eliminate all that excess that we don't have to have. I just feel like even before, when we just, had so much stuff, and that's what we thought meant things and all that, it was so much more stressful that we didn't even realize, because it was like the upkeep. And how does that look right now? Should I be moving that around? It was just a lot more mental clutter too.
Well, and I've found too that things don't get stuffed in the back of an attic anymore. Maybe things that mean something to you, because things don't get stuffed back too far anywhere with us, because we don't have enough. So things that you do hold on to that you like, maybe things you've had since you were a kid or a teenager, might be a little bit more in the forefront. Things that make you, and which are typically things that make you feel good, So there's a lot of that.
There is a lot of that. Well, that's, I think, probably one of the reasons I just love our home so much. I don't love the house itself here. It's too big for me, frankly. When we moved here, we ended up going bigger than we did in Alaska, not really on purpose, but just military life. You sometimes just got to fall where the cookie crumbles. And but I always love our home, big or small, wherever we're living, because we have gotten rid of all those knickknacks and whatever kind of decor that didn't mean anything to us, and instead we're displaying the things that do mean something to us. So for instance, even just last week was my birthday. I turned 36. So like on the upper side, closer to 40 than to 30 now. I feel like it's substantial. So in the mail, I was surprised. So my mom passed away when I was 24 years old. And in the mail, I got a birthday present from my stepdad, who now lives in Indiana, and he's remarried, and we love her. But anyways, so he sent me this birthday present. I opened it, total surprise. He sent me my mom's old Bible, which for me was everything to me. My mom's Bible she was in it every single morning. She has notes in the margins, the big study Bible. And he even had it rebound for her a couple of years into their marriage, because it was falling apart. She used it so much. It's a real distinct and important part of my mom. And in the last couple of months, I'd even been thinking, like, I wonder where my mom's Bible is. I bet Sherwin has it, and kind of thinking, like, how do I ask him if that can come to me at any point, And here he does. He surprises me. It's the best gift I've ever received.
Amazing.
And so I think to myself, what am I going to do with this Bible? What I'm not going to do with this Bible is put it in my closet and let it just sit there, right? And so I decided, I found this display case. It's very minimal. It's just a little acrylic display case that literally fits the Bible perfectly. And we have left margin in our home. Actually, there's one area on my wall that I don't love anymore, and I'm going to take those things down, and I'm going to display my mom's Bible on the wall.
Oh, wow.
And so I can see it, And so that's the kind of thing when people walk into our house, whether it's yourself or guests around you, where they're going to say, this feels special because everything's intentional, right? We've pared down. We've gotten rid of the clutter. My mom's Bible on the wall is not clutter. The beautiful painting that we had someone do of our backyard in Alaska is not clutter. There is nothing you look around and say that's not personalized to the Leyko family. And that's what it's about, right? It's not about having bare walls. It's about making space for what matters to you.
You're hitting the nail on the head with that. Right? Yeah, definitely.
Were you that way before moving to Alaska?
A little bit, not so much. No, like it's definitely, I would say in the last 5 years, we were 3 years in Alaska, 2 years here, has become more concentrated because I've always been a little bit of a sentimentalist, not in the sense that I hold on to everything. I've always been pretty good at letting things go. But I would say the sentimental items I did keep, I didn't display as much. But once I started getting really intentional about not having a bunch of stuff on the walls, then I realized, I can actually enjoy the things that were sitting in the closet. So that has been a natural progression, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. Neat.
So in your you have a couple things we want to talk about. Paring down. So when you I feel like you've given so much knowledge so far in this. Is the feedback that you receive, or do you see your demographic enough to know, are the people who are listening to you when you're sharing, your experience with minimalism and all that, like what you just said, do you find that these people are yearning for that sort of a feel? Or do you think it's people who are like-minded like us? We're like, oh yes, I'm getting all these good vibes even just talking to you, because I'm like, yes, I love talking when people get it. It's just, and then I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen. We're gonna finish recording today, and because we talked to you, I'm going to go back through and I'm going to go, okay, because it inspires me. It makes me feel like, yeah, I want to do better. And I feel like we do really well already. But what is the reaction off of your podcast? Do you feel like it is people who want to do better, or it's that people who get it, or what is that like?
I would say it's the majority that come to the podcast are women in their 30s and 40s who are just overwhelmed. Most of them are moms, and most of them, they might have seen my content on Instagram, and so that what brings them the podcast, or maybe on their own, they realized I am drowning in my house. I'm tired of just being stressed out on the weekends trying to catch up on laundry. I'm tired of this mountain of toys that my kids have, and they don't want to get rid of any. And they just feel the sense of stress. So whether they kind of discover that getting rid of stuff feels good via my Instagram or via something else, and then they come look up minimalism podcasts on Apple Podcasts or whatever, I find it's people who want to make a change, but they're just not sure how to do it, or they need permission in some senses to know that it's okay to let go of things. There's a lot of guilt that comes with decluttering because we're facing all of the money that we spent on things that we don't necessarily need anymore. We're looking at past versions of ourselves, whether it's your clothes or different hobbies that you never really followed through with, and saying, am I going to keep this? That's, from 4 sizes ago before I had children. Am I going to keep this hobby for maybe one day when I do it, even though I'm probably never going to? So we're facing that money guilt. We're facing the past kind of who we were or who we wanted to be. And it's an emotional process. There's also the sentimental items maybe of our kids from when they were little, or of people who've passed, like me. I lost my mom. And how do we do all of this? And so really my message and my goal is that people can come to Paring Down, similar to your podcast, never feel a judgment, as that it's their fault they have all this stuff. We've failed sometimes. I feel like women in particular feel like I've failed if I cannot keep on top of my house and home management, right? It's, even though hopefully the world is changing to kind of be more equitable when it comes to that, I do think that falls on the shoulders of most women. And so I want people to understand that this is a true result of a consumer society, right? If we are not actively taking and messaging like our podcast or a different kind of Instagram that is about contentment rather than consumerism, then the primary messaging we're going to get is consumerism. It's going to be, buy this cute dress for your daughter. It's going to be, you need this new gadget. You need this. This is going to be a fun little memory from your trip. All of these things, it's all screaming at us, buy, more. So in order to counteract that, you have to intentionally take in different messaging. You have to, because otherwise your brain is going to be completely caught up in the things that everyone around you is doing and what's being, messaged into your brain. It sounds like robots, but you know what I mean? It's being programmed into the way that we see the world. I mean, it's tough. And so I would say that generally speaking, I hope that the podcast and this kind of message is here to counteract that without judgment and say, hey, we get it. It's not your fault that you live in this kind of a society, but now you can take the reins. You can feel less stressed. You can let go of these things that feel illegal to let go of. You know, like, how do I let go of these cords? What if you need them for something? Have you needed them for the last 12 years? No, you'll be fine. You know what I mean? And sometimes we need to hear that, though. We need to hear that it's okay. Or that, hey, even if you do lose the weight someday that you want to lose, you will probably want to wear a different pair of jeans than the ones that you had 15 years ago, you know? And so sometimes we just need that practicality spoken to us. And so that's what I find women coming to the podcast for.
You're so right.
Especially if you're not ready to turn to the elastic ones.
Which are great, by the way. Pregnancy pants are where it's at. Okay.
You know, I'm glad you brought up that about people who have passed, and we've talked about this before, and we talked about this with another guest recently. There is, and even me, who I just don't want the stuff. There is there's guilt, but I do feel like when my grandmother passed away, I've talked about this a million times, that, you know, the saddest thing was that we were all going through just so much stuff, and we shouldn't have been doing it. Like we shouldn't have had to. And so it really told me and JR, while we don't have kids, we have nieces and siblings. And we're just like, if something happened to us, the last thing I want someone to have to do is to go through our stuff and go, well, you know, she really loved this, I should probably keep it. I just always imagine like my loved one, whatever you believe, but my grandmother's in heaven, and I'm like, she's looking down. Is she mad that I didn't keep more of her stuff? Like, no, she's definitely not saying, yeah, I really cannot believe that y'all got rid of that stuff. Like, that's who I am. No, the stuff is not who they are. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because I do feel like a lot of it's hard on a lot of loved ones and families to go through that stuff anyway.
Yeah. I mean, when my mom died, it was interesting to me to try and reconcile that while her stuff brought up specific memories, that she would have very much been alive and influential in my life in the world, even if none of that stuff still existed. Right? Like, just because if, let's say, everything that my mom ever wore or used burned in a fire, does not mean my mom didn't exist. Right? Like that you have to separate those things out. And I have, you know, a couple of things that I've kept from her that are useful to me. Like I have 2 of her half marathon t-shirts that I just remember her running in, you know, vividly. And just very, very few things. I have a necklace, and I didn't keep much because over the years, I mean, and it's been a process. She died 11 years ago, you know, and actually just this past maybe 2 days ago went through her old like recipe note card box, you know, that's just always been sitting there and doesn't take up much space. And so I've always just kind of like had it, and because it meant something to me. But then I was like, I should probably go through and actually look at these recipes. And I found this like old picture of her, like with this 4th of July cake with a recipe of the cake written on the back and some really cool things in there that have been sitting there for over a decade. But anyway, the point is that to remember that like she exists in me, the lessons that she taught me that I am now passing down to my children, or the way I show up in the world. I mean, I don't think I would have a podcast about minimalism if it wasn't for my mom, because my whole life she wasn't, I don't think she would identify specifically as a minimalist. Like that word was never used, but we were always taught like, hey, name brands aren't going to make you happy. And whenever I would complain about cleaning my room as a teenager and I'd say, I don't know where to put this, you know, she'd be like, it's not that you don't have enough space, Shannon. It's that you have too much stuff. I remember her saying that all the time. And so, you know, those kinds of things, I think they seeped their way into me. And even though in my early 20s, you would have no idea that they seeped their way into me when I was shopping at Forever 21 and using my dorm room floor as a closet, like here we are in my 30s. And all of the things that she's taught me, a lot of them are really coming through now, kind of in a more mature adulthood. And so that's who she is. That is the legacy she left, you know? And I love, like, I look at my hands, and maybe if my mom hadn't passed away, I might not like my hands. I've got like, you know, kind of like thin fingernails that never grow, and they're a little bit wrinkly and have some scars on them and stuff, but they look just like my mom's hands. And so now I love reaching every day. I reach for something and I notice my mom's diamond is in my engagement ring, and my hands look like hers. That to me is so much more powerful than if I had a storage locker full of her stuff that makes me feel sad, thinking my mom no longer exists to use all that stuff. It bogs me down. It makes me sad. Someday I'll have to go through it, right? That sounds miserable to me. Instead, I'm like, oh, I'm going to put on my mom's half marathon t-shirt and I'm going to go on a walk around the neighborhood. And that feels like connecting to my mom. Yes. And what a beautiful way for her legacy to live on.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So your book, You're Completely Normal, which I love the title. I want to talk about what motivated you to write it, and when did you write it? In your transition, was it before Alaska? Was it after Alaska? And how did your journey of minimalism play a role in that?
Yeah. Okay. So You're Completely Normal. And the subtitle is Trading Where You Think You Should Be for Where You Want to Go. And so it's really about the 9 kind of facets of life where you can feel the most behind. So everyone around me is already married, they're having kids, or their career looks like this. They live in this kind of a home. They're in really great shape. Everyone's running a half marathon, right? Like we have all these things that makes us feel behind in life. So I kind of narrowed down those 9 facets of life that I think are the most prominent pieces of life that make us feel behind. And then using a lot of like comedy and anecdotal type messaging, as well as my background in psychology. So I pulled on a lot of research to prove that there is no such thing as a timeline. And in fact, just living intentionally is the perfect timeline for you. As long as you are making intentional choices, then that is the recipe for success in life, not kind of what the world spells it out to be. And so, I wrote that book. Gosh, I was pregnant with my second. We had just moved to Alaska. Okay. And so I started it when I was 8 months pregnant, and then I took a 6-week break postpartum, and then I started writing again when I had that newborn and a toddler, which was insane. And then the pandemic hit when I was about halfway through the book. So then I published it in November of 2020. And it was a really fun experience. Honestly, it was something I've always wanted to do. I think a lot of times we say, I want to write a book, or I want to start a podcast, or I want to whatever, and my mom has always, that's another big piece of her, was she instilled in us, just do it. Don't try. My mom always said, don't try, just do, I'm going to try and write a book. No, don't try, write the book, and so she instilled that kind of like self-motivation in me. And so, it was a really exciting thing to be able to do. The book was extremely successful. I self-published and I didn't know how that was going to go, but luckily, I think that the product really resonated with people. I think a lot of people feel behind in life. And so then they started buying it for gifts for other people. And the next thing I know, I'm like, who's buying all these books? This is crazy. And so, I would say minimalism plays into that, because even though that wasn't the focus of the book by any means, but I think the big picture that has always been part of my messaging when anything I've done, I used to have a blog, and I still do technically, but I had the blog, and then the book, and now the podcast, is intentionality, right? So the book is really about intentional living in a way that you're not comparing yourself to people around you, and paring down. Now the podcast is about intentional living, maybe more so in the choices you make inside your home, but also paring down your beliefs and your schedule and slowing down a little bit. And it really all centers back on this intentionality piece.
Yeah, that's so important for today's culture too, especially the comparing in the age of Instagram and that. I mean, that's all people do all day long.
Yeah.
Look at Instagram and you automatically compare when you're on there, because it's everybody's best,
It's the best of their existence.
We do like Instagram.
Yeah, and it's curated, and we all do it. Mm-hmm. But I think that the key is to understand that there is another piece that people don't shine a light on enough. It's sad. I was talking to someone recently about this, that whatever your intention is behind minimalism is not for you. That's fine. I don't think either of us are saying that everyone should be on that path, but no matter what it is, be intentional. And I think that when we are so inundated with the marketing campaigns and consumerism, that's not intentional. Clicking the Amazon cart to get to you quicker is not intentional. It's mindless.
It's reaction behavior. It's not like really thought out. It's just reacting to things.
So I like that you talked about that, like just living, being and living your life with as much intention as possible. That's I think that's so important.
Right. Well, thank you. I love talking about it too, because it has changed my life so much. I think that's why, you and I, we love to talk about minimalism. It's not for the sake of minimalism. It's because it's a snowball effect in our lives. You start really looking at your choices. Maybe it starts with looking at your clothes in your closet and the toys in the house or whatever, and saying, I have too much of this. And so you're getting intentional about what you're getting rid of. And then as a natural progression of that, you're going to be more intentional about what you're bringing in, right? You're like, I just cleaned out that toy room. I'm not buying more toys. I don't want those in my house, right? So now you're slowing down and getting intentional about what that is. And then I think the next step there is this contentment piece, where you really start to sink into, wow, I can be grateful and content where I am. I don't need to buy the cute matching Easter set with my daughter. I'm not to say that's bad.
I was going to say, I saw a matching outfit with you and your daughter. Was adorable.
Yeah, thank you. I do love a good matching outfit. But, we don't need all of these different things to fulfill us. That's not what's going to be fulfilling, right? Like, I think when we all really step back and look at life, we know that relationships are what fulfills us. And if you are a spiritual person, then your spiritual life. I think those two things are the most fulfilling parts of life. And so then this contentment piece can sound scary to people who are new to this lifestyle, because they think, well, I don't want to. Contentment sounds like you're just settling, right? And that's not it either. Contentment is saying, I am happy in my life. I don't need anything else to be happy. And now I have the space to dream up what is actually important to me, right? I'm not just going to work to make 6 figures so that I can come home to a big house that I have to clean 5 different bathrooms in. That's not content. You're not ever going to be content in that life. You're going to have the big, beautiful home that looks good on Instagram, but I promise you that's not contentment. Contentment, and that is linked so closely to minimalism, is saying, I don't need to make buku bucks. I can live in a smaller home because I don't need more. And because I'm happier in the kind of job that I have, or maybe I have more bandwidth in my schedule because I'm not working 24/7, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to focus my efforts on X, Y, and Z that matters to me, that fills my creative soul, or creates an opportunity to give to other people and be generous with my time, which is so fulfilling, as we know, for the person who's the giver. All of these times, it frees us up to do the things that matter most to us, that are going to actually fulfill us, not the white countertop that is not going to fulfill us.
That's right. That's right. Those things you can build on, those foundational things that you build on the rest of your life. You need those things.
Well, we talk about the mental health aspect of this a lot, and how we, in the beginning, we didn't think that was part of it, but it is, and how it really helped us become more clear on what we needed to work on and what we didn't. But contentment is underrated. Like, so many people strive for happiness, and it seems so unattainable. And when you are not well physically or mentally, and whether it's minimalism or just decluttering your life, there is clarity in that, and understanding, like you said, then there's contentment. And then contentment, I mean, I said it, it's just underrated. It's underrated.
It is. It's the foundation that actually gives your dreams the space and energy to thrive and grow. It's not the crushing of dreams. It's not saying I'm just going to settle in life and not do anything amazing with my time. It's the opposite of that. It's saying I can be happy and content and grateful for where I am. And because of that mindset, I am now free to pursue the things that matter to me.
Yeah. And when you have time to think and daydream, daydreaming is underrated. That's where your dreams sort of take a little bit of momentum, because through your daydreaming and stuff like that.
Aspiring. Yeah. Before we get to your fast 5, I do want to ask you, because you are a mother of 3, and I'm hearing that you wrote a book during your pregnancy, and then we had a toddler. So just on the day-to-day, what is balance like for you?
Oh gosh. Balance is leaning heavily on my partner. My husband is awesome. He's hiding with the kids in my 6-year-old's room right now so that they're not screaming on the podcast. The episode I'm releasing in 2 weeks is going to have kids screaming in the background. I'm like, I can't do 2 of those in a row. So I would say balance is recognizing you can't do it all by yourself, right? Because I have a podcast, and paring down as a whole as a business. I do a masterclass and all of these things involved with that. I work part-time for a therapist. I have 3 kids. And there's a lot of other things in my life. My third child is adopted. And so we are big believers in open adoption and keeping up the relationship with his first mom. And we're heavily involved with our church. There's a lot going on, like you said. And so balance to me really looks like saying no to the things that don't feed my core values. Identifying those core values in your life is so important so that you can kind of look at your schedule and figure it out. Do you have time to actually do something? And make sure your core values aren't something you're just trying to fit in among the other things, but that our core values are happening in the choices we make in our schedule and our time. And then we can fit in other things if we need to, right? Mm-hmm. Like soccer practice is not a core value for us, And so I think that's important to kind of like recognize those different priorities in your life. And and then there's practical measures too that come with balance, right? Like for me, I don't work on nights and weekends. I really try not to. I mean, we're recording on a Saturday morning and this doesn't feel like work for me, but this is also a difficult time. It's summer. My kids aren't in school. I have, less time to be able to record, but generally speaking, I create a lot of margin for rest and restoration, and that's what balance is. So I can be I'm a hard worker from 8 a.m. till usually like 12 when I have to get my kids from school. I concentrate my hours. I time block. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm not getting in an Instagram hole, but that's so that every night after the kids go in bed at 7:30 and all I do is sit on the couch and read my book and watch a show with my husband. So I have that recovery period.
Well, we're going to get to your fast 5, but I will tell you, we're going to make these as fast as we can, but I feel like we need to dive into because we have some questions.
Okay, I'm here. Let's do it.
Okay. So number 1, I think we're good. But number 1 is Alaska winters or Florida summers.
Alaska winters. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. I mean, you can't really go outside very often in either, frankly, because in summer you're melt and winter there. But at least in like Alaska winters, we, found cozy ways to connect. And here in the summer, it's like, I don't know, it's not my thing.
Yeah. It's that wall of heat.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, spontaneous trip or planned vacation?
A planned vacation. I like planning. We have a camper van and we have 2 beds in the back of it, like bunk beds, and we just like drive it up into a campsite and it's so fun. I mean, there's some spontaneity that I enjoy, but generally speaking, I want to know where we're parking our van or, where we're going, especially with 3 kids. Like I need to know if there's a bathroom. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Number 3, this is where I feel like we need to talk a little bit. So reality TV or scripted series?
Oh, reality TV all day.
You still watch reality TV, even though you worked in it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know a little bit more about that.
It's fun. It's fun to dissect it more now that I know kind of like the background of it. So I worked in development, so not for shows currently on air. Like I wasn't someone like doing the interviews with the like Bachelorette contestants, to get them to say crazy things. I was the one developing new shows from scratch, like coming up with ideas, finding new talent, whether it's on Instagram or through a magazine, calling them, doing an interview. Can you carry your own season? Building out what a show would look like, and then pitching that to the networks. So I was on the development side of things. So it's fun when I see new shows pop up. I'm like, how did this get passed? How did this get greenlit? Like I want to know, like, how did they get that whole thing? Who do they know? Who do they meet with? Because it's very political. But no, I totally am a unscripted girly because, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've watched Bridgerton and that kind of thing, but I feel like my brain has so much going on that following a scripted show often feels like work to me. I also prefer reading. So if I want to have like a fiction-y kind of mental escape in that way, I'm going to pick up a novel versus I like at the end of the night, if I watch Top Chef, my brain doesn't have to do any work, and I appreciate that.
Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah, that is. I tend to fall behind too in scripted shows too, and I gotta say, wait a minute, and ask her.
Yeah, and I catch
she's really good with bam, 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 and I just think, okay.
Before we follow a story.
Yeah, before we get to the next one, I do want to ask and follow up to that. You're Miss New York. Did that catapult you into the direction of television?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I definitely had television appearances when I was Miss New York. But yeah, I would say yes, in the sense that I have a big network from being Miss New York, right? But that wasn't even how I fell into the reality TV world. So yes and no. Like I know people who've been on a lot of reality TV shows. I know a lot of Survivor contestants and a lot of Bachelor contestants and that kind of thing. But
Uh-huh.
I know I kind of got pulled in because I went on a tubing trip with my now husband and met someone on the river who happened to be a producer, and we got to chatting, and next thing you know, that became my career. So I think it's just keeping an open mind.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. It sounds like one of those years that you say yes to everything. You're just like, yeah, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, I'll come like do a studio tour, and the next thing you know, it's funny how things happen in life, isn't it?
Right.
It is. Moving right along, solo adventure or family outing?
Oh, don't do this to me because it's summertime right now. I love my kids so much, but I would do anything for a solo outing right now. But no, generally speaking, family outings are so much fun. If we're outside, I'm happy. I struggle in the house. Like it's a lot. I don't want to play pretend or build blocks. I just have no interest. But like, I want to take you on a hike, and that will be fun.
Yeah.
We're the same way.
I get it. Yeah.
I mean, with each other
and
our dog.
Yes. Oh, we have 2 dogs too, and they're my other children. So yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Nice.
that's good.
Mhm.
Okay, the final one, number 5 is, and we probably know now. Well, I don't know. Okay, mountain hike or beach stroll.
Mountain hike, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Because you're talking about the beach earlier, and I was like, oh, this could go a different way. We always think we know what the answer is going to be, but then it completely throws us off.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know, it's so funny. Well, people, because we live in Florida, and it's hard if you're, just because we're military. First of all, most people like the beach. That's like a thing. As a human being, most people like beaches. And then when us being Coast Guard, I think people don't realize we're not living here by choice, right? So people assume that we're warm weather people, and I'm like, no, actually, this is not where we want to stay forever. We met people we love, as you do anywhere you go, but geographically, it's not our number one.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, the question that we do ask everyone, and Shannon, we would love it if you would answer it, is what does a life well lived mean to you?
Okay, so a life well lived to me means really living intentionally. It means being able to look back on my life and know that I took the time to make intentional steps to achieve goals I want to achieve, to treat other people the way I want to treat them, to form relationships with my family, my kids, and my friends, and prioritize those. And so, it's really living a life that's aligned with my core values. And so that would be a life well lived for me. And I'm striving to live it. I'm not perfect. There are certain days that I just feel like, I don't feel like I'm being the best mom I can be, or why haven't I accomplished this yet, or whatever. But I know that I am working towards it, that I'm not on autopilot, and that's the best I can do.
Well, I feel like, when you were saying what it was, I was like, it kind of sounds like she's living it. It sounds like you're doing it,
I'm trying. I feel so fortunate too, because some of these things, like a life well lived for me also, there have been so many dreams of mine that come true that aren't necessarily in my control. Like I always wanted to get married and have a family, and I have that. I have the most supportive, wonderful husband in the whole world. I have 3 beautiful, healthy children. I have an extended friends network of really, really down to earth, brilliant, wonderful women who are supportive in my life, and 2 adorable doggies, so some of this is stuff that I've been able to do. And this podcast that I love, obviously my career has been super fun. I've had these amazing experiences in life. So I feel really grateful for where I am, but I also recognize that there's a piece of it that I do just feel blessed and lucky, because I don't know where my husband came from. He's like the most amazing human alive. And I'm like, how did that happen? I don't know, but I'm going to take it. You know what I mean? So I'm grateful for the things that I haven't done to bring this into my life that are here.
Oh, yeah. Well, Shannon, before we part, we would love it if you could tell our audience where they can find all of your offerings, your podcast, your blog, and your book.
Sure. So you can buy my book. It's mostly just available. It used to be in indie bookshops, but I think most of them are sold out, and I haven't called to restock. So Amazon is where you're going to find You're Completely Normal by Shannon Leyko. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Paring Down Podcast is the handle. There's no I in Paring Down. So PARING, Paring Down Podcast. You can look that up on wherever you listen to podcasts. And then my blog is theexpertbeginner.com.
And we're going to link all that down in the show notes. So if someone's driving and they're like, oh my gosh, what did she say? Or I wish I would have written that down. It's in the show notes. So no worries.
Yay. Oh, I should also mention too, because these are relatively new, that it's linked in my Instagram, but I have a complete guide to decluttering kid stuff. I also have a free Know Your Why worksheet where you can really figure out your own core values, as well as a free baby essentials list so that you don't start motherhood with like all the baby stuff like taking over your house. So if anyone wants any of those are resources I offer as well.
Okay. So we'll link all of that down. And this was a great way to start our day. So I hope that this was okay for you too.
Oh, stop. This is the best way to start my day. Are you kidding me? I'm like so energized now. And like you said, whenever we have conversations like this, I'm like ready to go live an intentional life.
Yeah.
Yes.
We love our Saturday morning ones, I think, the best. It's just a good way to start off a weekend.
It is.
And I tend to carry a lot of it through the week, and it's just,
We do thank you for your time because we know it means a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, that was wonderful conversation on a Saturday morning. A good way to start the weekend over coffee, having somebody in the house virtually.
Yeah. Even though this is released on a Tuesday, we do record a lot of these on Saturdays, which we do love. And it is, like you always say, it's like having someone over.
Yeah, that's my favorite time to do them. Saturday morning over coffee.
Yeah. And Shannon was great.
She was. And once again, like-minded people.
Yeah. One of the things that immediately, which I knew I was going to like her anyway, but immediately drew me in was when she started talking about the hygge, whatever, HYGGE lifestyle.
Right.
Because we love that whole vibe, the whole cozy minimalism. And when you talk to someone who knows what it is, number one, number two, appreciates it, and that whole vibe, it's not, it's like the whole thing we always say, the myths about minimalism is that it's sterile and you don't have anything, and it's really not like that.
In a lot of ways, it cuts down. Yeah, I know what you say about the sterile, like everything's going to be white and just everything edgy and, no softness to anything, but it's not like that. Yeah, it's getting rid of things that build up in clutter that don't mean a whole lot. And then that tends to make room for things that probably do mean a lot, a little more sentimental, that maybe the things that get stuffed away for years.
You mean minimalism makes room for that?
It does.
Okay.
It does. Yeah, it tends to bring those things out then. Yeah. Once you get rid of the junky stuff that doesn't really mean much to you. Now, and in her case, that was interesting. She talked about, because I always say this too, that I kind of see the things now that used to be buried in the attic or the whatever kind of big closet we used to have. And she was talking about her mom's Bible and her mom's marathon t-shirt.
Yeah.
And because she lost her mother when she was young, I think. And so these things are real sentimental. And I've said that to you a lot, like different things that now that we have sitting out that maybe have been buried away for a long time. So in her case, she's a minimalist, but yes, the things that really mean something, like the two I just mentioned, are out in the forefront for her.
Right. I even thought it was interesting when she talked about the gallery wall that, a lot of people have of all the different pictures on their wall, which we used to have. Do you remember that? Before we made our whole lifestyle change. Mm-hmm. And she's so right. It's like, no, when you look around like our living room now, there's like 3 canvas pictures that are very meaningful to us. And we pay attention to them. We're in the gallery wall of, aesthetically, all those white frames, they match, but I couldn't tell you right now what picture was in them.
No, I couldn't either. I don't miss those so much, and I tend to zero in on just the couple we have now.
Yeah.
Like I'm glancing over at one right now, and I feel like I looked at that yesterday, the
one of us and Betty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's on the beach on the lifeguard stand.
Yeah.
And I feel like every few days I kind of look at that and go, oh, that's cool. It's kind of prominent. Doesn't get lost in the mix, as they say.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. I just loved her. I loved the conversation and everything, the whole vibe. It was great.
It was, yeah.
And, if this episode inspired you to maybe start your decluttering journey, you can, all the resources that she mentioned are in the show notes. You can also head to our website and you can take part in our free 30-day declutter challenge, or you can take a step forward and check out Declutter 365, which is a whopping $3.65.
Yeah.
And, it's just, we've learned that if you get a little bit of skin in the game, you'll be more apt to do it. So it's 365 steps, takes you through a whole year. You can start anytime. And I hope you get inspired to make some moves with your clutter if you have some.
And I haven't mentioned in a long time that the 30-day declutter challenge is 30 days in a row. You can't spread it out over the year. It's been a while since I brought that up. I think it's important to know, right?
That's true.
Yeah. If this episode resonated with you, or if you know of someone who would benefit from what we talked about, please share it with a friend.
It's a great way of supporting the podcast, and we really appreciate it.
Another way of supporting the pod is by leaving us a 5-star review or rating on the platform you are listening to us on.
And go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That also supports us. You can always find us, the show notes, and sponsors who support the podcast at arneradventures.com.
And until next time, enjoy the journey you're on. We're wishing you lots of adventures.
Bye-bye.